kind of think Thanos was justified. The Avengers and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, hold on.
Listen, I want to welcome you to Crossland Church. Welcome to Crossland Church. And if you know anything about our church, we love to do our couch talks. And so we've been doing them for about a year now. And so today we have a special couch talk today. I got my fellas is in the house today. So we're doing a couch talk with the men today, all right? How y'all feeling today? Everybody good? Good. Now don't be up here and be quiet now. Y'all had all the jokes 2 minutes ago, right? But before we get started, I just want to, first of all, I want to thank you so much for tuning in and watching us and for your prayers and everything you've been doing for Crossland. So look, I want to give you a couple of announcements. If you want to connect with this church, you can go to our website, go to crosslandchurch.com. At the very top, you can click connect. You can go and fill out that connection card. If you fill that out, someone will connect with you this week and get back to you this week. I want you to join us for prayer. We have prayer Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. 6 a.m. is early. I want you to join us for prayer, 6 a.m. And also on Fridays, I go live on Facebook, okay? And then I want you to, if you want to give to this church, I want you to go to our website. We thank you so much for what you've given us thus far. It's because of your giving that we're able, each month, we support a nonprofit. So because of your giving, we are able to do that. So if you would love to continue to give, you can go to our crosslandchurch.com, click give, and there's 3 ways for you to give right there. So look, I feel like I'm moving kind of quick, but I want to get to our talk. And then the last thing is this. I want you to meet us on Thursdays. Thursdays have begun.
Yes, sir.
And we had an amazing time this past Thursday. And so now I want you to join us on Thursday, 6:30. That's going to be in the city of Antioch, Tennessee. That's 41 Tusculum Road, all right? Every Thursday, 6:30. Man, we just have a good time. So we had a good time on this past Thursday. So listen, fellas, we are talking through today. First of all, I want to thank y'all for joining us and for saying yes to being part of the Couch Talk. Before we go any further, I want you to introduce yourselves, and we're going to start with Chris. Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, what kind of foods you like. No, don't do that. But yeah, let's start about a little bit about you.
I thought this would be fit. So my name is Chris Bitton. I am the Crossland in the. No, I'm joking.
Hey man, go ahead.
I feel like it'd be fitting here, but no, I am the music director here at Crossland with the music team, also the leadership team, and I am from Huntsville, Alabama. I love wings. I will answer
chicken wings.
I love wings.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to be here.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
That's real.
All right.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? My name is Tyler Stewart. I'm one of the leaders here at Crossland. You also see me sometimes assisting with worship. And I'm born and raised from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And hey, you know what? I'll eat anything spicy. I love
spicy
love
stuff.
anything spicy.
He really likes spicy.
There you go. I do. It's wonderful.
Sweet. My man right here.
All right. I am Andrew King.
Deshawn.
I'm sorry. Get it right.
That's a joke. It's not a joke.
Right.
Get it right.
Oh my God.
So they dragged me off the street. They forced me to come here against my will. But they did promise that there would be food at the end of this. So no. My name is Andrew King. I've been buddies with Josh here for a couple years. Used to work with him here at The Experience. I think he got to the bottom of his list, and I think I was like off the list. And then I got a phone call to come and show up here because everybody else said no. But I'm excited to be here. And yeah, so really ready to get into this.
Sweet. My guy right here.
Hi, my name is Richard Reed. I am a local educator.
Yes.
I came in here
Shout
the
out.
same reason for Deshawn did.
Deshawn.
They took me off the bottom of the list and brought me in. So I needed somebody to come in and fill in, so I'm here. But I'm very glad to be here.
Whatever. My guy right here.
I am Cameron Mitchell, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
You know, Memphis 901.
We won't hold that against you.
Don't worry, you say it. But I am a spoken word artist, actor, and I just enjoy.
And he models.
Oh, well, you know.
He models.
With
All
the
of
shoes.
that talked about. Yeah, man, I enjoy the brotherhood here, so definitely glad to be a part.
Good things. So listen, a lot of the guys here you see on the couch, we have a men's group on Mondays that meet in the city of Antioch at Slim and Huskies. And so we called it Cinnamon Rolls and Convo.
Oh,
so every Monday, we are in Slim and Huskies. We got our cinnamon rolls on the table, and we are really just having some great conversation. And I love doing life with these guys. And so listen, today we are going to be talking through the book of Joshua. So last week we were in Joshua chapter 2. And so this week we are going to be doing Joshua chapter 3 and Joshua chapter 4. All right? You looking like, whoa. But no, I promise you, we're going to get it done, all right? But so listen, I want, did you guys enjoy reading Joshua chapter 3 and 4? What were some of your thoughts about the chapter? Is there any themes, anything that that stood out that was sort of like consistent throughout those two chapters?
Oh goodness! If we're talking about themes, I love how God used Joshua in order to, of course, leading the people going through the Jordan River. But of course, God did the same thing with Moses as well. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but if we flash forward over to the New Testament, when kind of the same thing is happening with Jesus as well, the sky also cracks open too. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we're able to see how God is using these three events that all kind of coincide with each other. How God says, okay, I'm going to use Moses to get people through the Red Sea. I'm going to go ahead and use Joshua in order to get people through the Jordan River. But not only that, I'm also going to acknowledge my son, and this is, I believe, where the Holy Spirit comes down as well. And so it's great to see how God is always giving us these consistent reminders how he likes to just bring his people through. And we like to say that God is so unpredictable, but of course we never really know how God is going to move. But it's also really great to see these parallels in Scripture. How Jesus is also still able to say to reference writings from the Old Testament just to confirm that he's God in flesh.
That's
so
good.
That's what I got.
Anybody else? So what were some things or some thoughts that you had when reading the chapter?
The word, and I really like what you said there, Tyler. But kind of the theme that I kind of noticed kind of builds off of that. But the word that just kind of really kept jumping out to me as I read through these chapters was legacy. Legacy. Because it talks about within there, Joshua is really he's really kind of Moses's disciple, and they weren't really using the word disciple at that time, but he was really kind of Moses's go-to guy. And throughout this, God really uses this experience to establish Joshua as the new leader of the Israelites.
Yeah.
And he leads them through the Jordan River, very similar to how Moses led them through the Red Sea. But even still, he goes a step further, and when he tells them all to kind of gather up those stones, so that not for his own vanity and not for Joshua's own vanity, but to build this monument so that when people cross this way in the future, they can point to this thing and they can say, look, this is what God has done.
Yeah.
This is what God has done, and this is what he is doing in your life.
Good.
As well.
Now listen, we're going to get to the memorials in a minute, but
You said both.
He already said what you get. I love it. No, man, that's really good. That's really good.
I'll say this: the thing that stuck out to me, and I just had to read this like over and over again just to make sure I wasn't tripping. But if I had to bottle this down to one phrase, it will be, "Then they will know." Then they will know. And what's so crazy is like, how we like to not popularize. It's true. How we're in service and we're in church and be like, God, we just want you to get the glory. We want you to get to the glory. And we're very vocal about it. But what's so crazy about this is straight out of obedience and not necessarily out of popularity. It's do this, because then they will know. Who is they? Everybody. He's doing it in such a way that nobody can deny is God. So when we're like, we want God to get the glory, God is like, all right, cool. So not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to do that so that anybody that has any doubt about whether I can do it, whether I exist, whether you're doubting or whether you're even believing in me, then they will know. And I'm like,
yeah, that's good. You got a thought?
Yeah, I want to add to that because, definitely thinking about the whole Moses situation, you see they were running from something when they crossed the sea. But here's this situation where it's like there's nothing they're running from. They're actually getting to move towards something.
That's good.
And these people,
right.
this is a whole, and I mean, for real deal, it's like this is a whole generation that has grown up in the wilderness. Like this is all they've known is just like to hope for something. And then to finally get to that place where you get to experience God saying, all right, it's time for you to move forward. It's time to receive what is given for you, that's been here for you. And it's so hard to just believe like, man, like I've been hoping all this time for 40 years and we were finally about to get what God has for us. Like, so I just see that it's like getting what God has for us, like finally receiving.
No, and I love what you're saying there, because just to kind of add to that, because I think too often in our walk is that we want to be Christians because we're running from our sin. We're running from our sin.
Yeah.
And that's never like that motivation never stays.
Right.
And and we see that in the wilderness too. Like that motivation, they're running from Egypt.
That's good.
They're not running to God. Like they're just terrified. They're running from they're running from slavery. They're running from Egypt. But in this case, they're running towards something better.
Yeah.
And I think that we really have to frame our mindset, in that when we're, it's not just about, running from sin. Yes, we should be as far away from sin as we possibly can be.
Yeah.
But when we're running towards God, that's naturally going to happen.
Yeah.
That conviction is naturally going to take place.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so no, I love what you say there, because there's just such interesting parallels that just talk about how the Old Testament is still so relevant in our lives today.
Exactly. And I think the practicality of it, I think every one of us has been in a situation before where you've had to change leaders. You've been under somebody, and even if it was your mama and your grandmama and them, and they was under somebody, and then somebody else comes in, and you have to like, oh, we don't like you. I don't know if I want to follow you. I don't know if I want to do what you're saying. Or if you've ever been the leader that had to come in, and people were already used to somebody. But looking at the obedience of everyone involved, like, how do you take over for somebody and then have
already
these people follow
established.
this?
It's
Established.
already
Yeah.
established. Yeah.
Wow.
You're always going to have somebody that's going to
That's
be
tough.
like, yeah,
That's very
I
tough.
don't like you.
Yeah.
That's very tough.
You didn't live up to what
Yes,
he
exactly.
did.
Yeah. So listen, so I have a question for you guys. So chapter 3 and 4, let's focus on chapter 3 for a moment. What was the significance of crossing the Jordan? What was the significance? So as you think of that answer, for me, I wrote down something here. I said, crossing the Jordan is a turning point on the way to freedom. It's a turning point on the way to freedom. And then the question would be after that is, well, what's freedom? Freedom from what? So what were they walking out of? So maybe I'm answering a little bit, but so I'm gonna back up a little bit. What was the significance of the Jordan in this facet of the chapter 3? Like, what was that for you? What did you think?
I think you said it. Like, I'm an English teacher. I was an English teacher, but like we teach kids the climax. And the climax is where this character has got to get to some point where things are going to turn out good for them or bad for them. They're going to have to make some decision whether to go forward or turn back. And so here you are at this point where God has basically said, before I do this, go down there and get in there. And then I'm going to make something happen for you, And you can make a decision to say, I don't trust you like that. I don't know you like that. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I could sit here and be comfortable. I don't even want to talk about that right now, personally. But you can sit here and be comfortable, or you can go on down there and get in that good water and let me go do something for you. Yeah.
When I was thinking about that, like in the crossing of the Jordan, there were 3 stages that I think we've probably all felt at some point, or at least that we can point to some significance. It's that, okay, the Ark of the Covenant went first.
Yep.
Established itself, waters were parted, right? So it's at that point that we can say, okay, God is over here calling me to this thing. And then that's when the people decided to march. But what really stuck out to me is that, of course, we're in the second stage where we're like, okay, God, I feel you. I know, I see what you're wanting me to do and all that. But the people had to go past the ark in order to get to the end where the ark stayed. So think of it this way. It's like your ark is here, or God is here. I'm here. I got a cross here. I'm with right now. That's the second stage. But as you're coming out, like, have you ever been in a space where you're going further and further towards freedom or whatever it is, whatever destination God is telling you to go to, but you may feel him a bit less and less, yet you're still that much closer.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that he left you. It's the fact that, listen, I got to stay back here and keep you covered.
Yeah.
So that you can go ahead and get yourself off to the other shore. I could not get that out of my head as far if we're going to talk about significance when they were crossing. It would not leave me.
Anybody else? Significance?
So in all these 17 verses here, the two that really just kind of summed it up for me, I want to share it because this is starting at verse 3.
This is chapter 3?
Chapter 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Chapter 3, verses, and this is the New King James Version.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So it says, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then you shall set out from your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for you have not passed this way before. And to me, even if you read on, that is like you mentioned you had a word climax. That to me is like the climax of like your decision or your faith, your decision to trust him, because the ark, as you know, many people have referenced, it represents the presence of God. And so basically, the note that I wrote down was simply this: let God lead you. Do not try to get ahead of him. The presence went before. So you are seeking God's presence for your direction or for your answer.
Good.
Yeah.
And it's like, and like you had mentioned, once you're in his presence, then every answer that you need or everything you need is there. And then from there you can go because he'll cover you.
Correct.
Because you're in his presence. And it's like, because you don't know that the way, I think that's the thing that trips me up a lot is the future or the unknown, the unanswered. It's like, you don't know which way to go, so why are you trying to figure it out? Why are you you ain't got no, like, if they had not followed the presence of God, it would have just been a whole river.
Yeah.
No ground, no path. You just been out there drifting.
I might feel personally attacked right now.
Join the club. You come up here. Come on.
No. But listen, I like that because, again, God could have used anything.
Yeah.
He could have said, walk through there or walk around that city. But he used Jordan because at that time, the Jordan was known for a lot of flooding, right? There was a lot of flooding going on with the Jordan River. So that seemed impossible. To some people, it's looking like, well, how are we going to get through this? Because, this is floodland right here.
Right.
And so God is looking like, hey, if so it goes back to active obedience, right? Being obedient. But again, this was a turning point. God used this specific moment as a turning point because they were on their way to freedom. They were on their way to a promise that God promised them 40 years ago. Yeah. And so if you think about, freedom, so they're going to freedom. What are they walking towards freedom for? Like what happened back here? You know what I mean? And of course, back here was oppression. They was dealing with all types of breakthroughs and like all kinds of disobedience and things like that. So even sometimes in our lives, we want the freedom of God. I want to be free from this. I need victory of God. Okay, Josh, I want you to do something. And it always seems kind of crazy. Like, God, this doesn't make sense. Yeah. Why are you sending me to Nashville, Tennessee? Right? and I'm from a city. You just sending me to a country. To me, it was country, right? Man, it doesn't make sense. No, I'm using this because I want to teach you something. In order for you to see freedom, in order for you to see victory, you got to go through this. And if you would allow me to go first, if you allow me to walk with you, then literally I'm going to meet you every step of the way.
Can I?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, like, just as you were talking, I was visualizing a river, and it's like you're standing in front of the river, and it represents the place where you can no longer do it on your own.
Correct.
You can no longer do it yourself.
That's right.
It's a walk that you can't. You literally can't take another physical step because, like, he's going to have to do it. So, I just want to join Richard on saying I personally feel attacked.
Can I join that club too, please?
Please, yeah, because it is like you said something key. You was like the next step, the very next step. That's the step that's impossible for us to take on our own. Like you have to come to a crossroad to where, like you said, you're either going to completely trust, even if it don't make sense,
Right.
or you're gonna go back to what you were bound in.
How many of us stayed in the place too long?
Man, kind of question.
Stayed in the place too long, and you knew good and well, God said, listen, it's not intended for you to be here too long.
Yeah.
You know, God spoke some things to me over the summer, right? Over the spring and the summer. The intent of me obeying that word from God wasn't so that I can stay there a long time. And I'm talking about something very specific. But it was the act of obedience. But what ended up happening is, because of frustration, because of, them feeling like, man, what is this? A 2-week journey ended up being a 40-year, that's multiple generations.
Yeah.
They were stuck for 40 years. Can you imagine going on a vacation, on a family vacation? Hey, we supposed to be out here for a week, and it ends up being you being stuck on an island for 40 years.
Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island, right? Gilligan's Island. So being somewhere where the intent is, listen, it's not intended for you to be here. I just need you to get here, learn it, trust me, let me lead you, and then you can get to the promise. But us, ourselves, our minds, us complaining, us always comparing, comparing each other, and you got this, I got that. It makes us, or it puts us in a position where it keeps us, and then that keeping ends up being 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 40 years. These people were stuck. You about to say something, Andrew?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting that you say 40 years because, ultimately what would have happened in that amount of time is that most of the people that crossed the Red Sea
Would have died.
with Moses, like they're gone. And so this generation that's brought up, they've only heard stories of what God did. Like they've only heard stories of God, of what he did. And I can just easily picture, we've all heard stories from like our grandfather or like our dad or something like that about how how big something was, and you're like, there's no way that what you did was like that big or anything like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
I got you.
you're walking to school uphill both ways, and in the snow.
But even when you
all
say
that kind of
that,
stuff.
I heard stories from my grandma, granddad, grandpa, friends, mom, dad. You hear stories. Isn't there still, for me, I know it is, but isn't there something that's still on the inside of you that says, I heard your story, but I want to know for myself.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
I need to have my own experiences. So do you think maybe another significance of the Jordan was for God to give them their own experience?
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to note on was noticing that it was a flood, and I was trying to pull up. What was it? So not only was it the flood, but the reason why it was a flood was because it was during the harvest season.
Right.
And so taking note of that, it's like they're going into this new land during the time of harvest. And so there is this overflow and this abundance that they're about to go into when they've been deprived in the wilderness for 40 years.
40
And
years.
so God is showing like,
And they've only been deprived because of lack of disobedience. You
Yeah.
gotta make that very clear.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
yes. And so it's just showing like God's promise of, I'm not just gonna give you a little bit for your reward of being so obedient and so hopeful for all these years. I'm going to give you abundance.
Abundance.
For all the time that you've toiled and stood the test of the trials, like you are going to get abundance for this. And so it just felt like
That's good.
the Jordan crossing that river of just this overflow, it just seemed like just showing them like, hey, you're about to come into a lot. Yeah. You're about to come into more than what you could imagine. And
When you hear that, or someone says, "Hey, Tyler, you're about to come into a lot," does that excite you, or is there a part of you that's like,
okay,
"I hear you. What's the catch?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
If I hear that, honestly, for me, I get excited. Me personally, in my own spirit, I get excited because I find out more and more that as I need to get more disciplined in my routines and doing what I need to do, playing to my strengths, I also understand and now become excited like at the thought of things changing over the years. Like when I just think about like a lot of the transition periods over my life, whether it was say when I quit my serving job to go work and work under the chef as a prep cook for almost 2 years, whether it was when I was in my apartment, soon to be new apartment for me and my now wife, like when I was staying there by myself and when she came in on our wedding night, like a lot of those things, even though of course those challenges are going to come because that's just what happens, but I've always been excited at the thought of being able to go into something different, just because for me personally, I hate staying in one place the entire time. I've been in so many places to where I know like there's a phrase for it, like where like the grace is lifted, where like God has put you in this place and covered you for so long, but you can see that transition is now on the horizon, and honestly, this makes me think even more of the Jordan, because what if someone had decided to go off and look at instead of looking at the stones that the representatives were going to get, that they looked at these little pebbles, and for whatever reason, if the Ark of the Covenant happened to leave, what would have happened to those people? What would have happened to that person? They would have gotten swallowed up just like that. Not to say that someone couldn't have saved them, but at the same time, that just shows how when God is pulling us, or when there's change on the horizon, he has his ways of being able to say, hey, you need to start moving. Stuff's about to happen. You can be excited or you can be scared of it, but either way, I'm gonna need you to move.
that's good.
And I can definitely see it's just like that space of something great is waiting for you on the other side, but you see this huge obstacle to get there, and it's like you're not sure if this gonna hurt me, or how much pain am I gonna go through to get this, and realizing like God being there will make a way that you're just like, we just went through that unscathed, like all limbs still here, like we good.
Yeah.
And it's that right there is what I see.
I kind of look at it in this way. I was trying to find the words to kind of piece it, but I'm just going to say it. Here we go. So I look at the other side of the Jordan as God, the manifestation of like God's will, his intent. He had promised that land to the forefathers. And so this was already a place where God had said, come and dwell, come and be. Mm-hmm. Like even like when Jesus came, he said that we'll have life and have it abundantly. So there is a standard that represents God and his provision, and that represents his promises that he wants his people to come and dwell in.
Yeah.
But now it's a matter of, okay, that's my will for you. So what's it going to be? Is it going to be my will, or is it going to be your will?
Yeah.
And so the place where they dwelled for so long in the wilderness was a manifestation of their will.
Yeah.
And you can even draw it back to where they were complaining about, we was in Egypt, we had meat, we had all this kind of stuff, and it's like now. So it's a constant struggle of wills. It's like you're chasing what you see, and you're chasing what you're desiring, or are you going to pursue what God wants for you?
Yeah. You know what kind of comes to my mind, and I'll say this real quick, and then we'll kind of come back to it because I want to take a quick break. But is this the greater or the deeper you are in a pit, the deeper you are in something, in order for you to come out of it, it's almost as if is like the children of Israel, they were deep in some stuff, right? 40 years deep.
Yes.
So it took a big instruction. It wasn't like, hey, just clap your hands 3 times. No, it took something in order for you to come out of this.
Yeah.
You've been in this thing for a long time. It didn't happen overnight. So in order for you to come out of this, it's going to take something really, it's going to take some big faith.
Yeah.
It's going to take for you to trust me with everything that you have.
Yep.
I'm about to put something literally right in front of you that you're going to think is impossible.
Yeah.
But literally, this is going to be the lifeline that's going to pull your tail up out of this deep pit
Yeah.
that you got yourself into. Now, granted, Josh and them didn't make the decisions. They were kids. You know, so who made the decision was their parents. They messed up. So because they messed up, Josh and them find themselves like, dog, we got to pull ourselves out of a pit that we didn't even dig ourselves into this crap. Ask me how I know about all of that. But it's all about, but what makes us come out of those pits is walking out the obedience of God. When we come back, I am going to, we're going to talk about the obedience of God, all right? We'll be back in a few moments. So listen, it's just, man,
What's up, everybody? You got Joshua here,
Hey y'all, Shatiqua here. What
and
up?
we are the Jamersons. You're supposed to say that with me.
We are the Jamersons.
Anyway, listen, we being silly, but listen, we just want to invite you. We are meeting on Thursdays. Our services, we are finally kicked off. So we want you to meet us and join us every Thursday,
Yeah.
6:30, Antioch, Tennessee, 41 Tusculum Road. Now, when they show up, I mean, what can they expect?
So when you get there, there are gonna be nice people there to help you park.
Yes.
It's gonna be some greeters there to help you get situated, figure out where you wanna sit. It's gonna be people there that are gonna help watch your children 2 years and under.
Yep.
They're gonna be there for the nursery. We're gonna have amazing worship. And then we're also gonna have an amazing message from this person right here.
Oh, Lord. God pray for me. But listen, but no, thank you guys for joining us. But again, meet us every Thursday, 6:30, Antioch, Tennessee, 41 Tuscan Road, Crossland Church. We are finally meeting in person, and we look forward to seeing you. All right, peace.
Listen, I want to welcome you back to Crossland Couch Talk. So before we left, we were talking about, first of all, I want to say to you, if you are watching this this morning, and literally all of us that's sitting here on this couch have literally found ourselves at some point in our life in a deep pit. We found ourselves in some stuff. I mean, we allowed life to overwhelm us. We made personal decisions that put us in pits. But we also made a choice and we made a decision to say yes to God. And whatever requirement that came of that, we literally walked that out to see the freedom of God or to experience the freedom of God. And so I want to encourage you this morning because we did it. The Word of God says we overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. So I want you to be encouraged to know that this morning, literally, you can experience the freedom of God. Yes, you're going to have to go through some Jordan. You're going to have a Jordan experience. If you are deep in something and you know you've been walking in disobedience, Jordan experience is going to come. A Red Sea experience is going to come. A Jericho experience is going to come. A Goliath experience is going to come. You're going to have to, there's no way of getting around it. But what we're, hopefully today, by the end of today's Couch Talk, you'll be encouraged enough to know that if God did it for us, He'll do it for you, all right? So listen, talking about the obedience of God and talking about the faith of God, it took a lot of faith. In the beginning of Joshua chapter 1, immediately God was saying, Joshua, you're going to go to this Jordan, but be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. I'll be with you wherever you go. If you meditate on my word day and night, if you follow the instructions, you keep the law in your mouth, don't turn from it to the right, to the left, keep everything that I'm saying. Because it's so important that God had to establish that in chapter 1. You have to follow the instruction of God. If you follow the instruction of God, you will find success. Everywhere your foot go, you'll find success. You'll find prosperity. Why am I saying that? It's because there were some specific instructions given to them in order for them to cross that Jordan. There was no way they was going to get through this flooded water, this flooded area, had they not followed the instruction of God. Let's talk about following the instructions of God. Now, this is something that's like, woo. What does it take? What does it take? Give me a step. What does it take to follow? First step, step one. What does that step look like to follow the instruction or to walk in the obedience of God?
That first step requires that you act when the Lord tells you to.
So act immediately.
Yes. Because
You got to move quickly.
That's right, because I'm sure we've all heard like delayed obedience is still disobedience.
It is. Partial, everything.
Oh my
If
gosh.
it ain't the full thing, it's
Yeah.
you're wrong.
And I
Right.
feel like in order to do that, though, you need discipline.
True.
Okay.
I mean, like really solid discipline because, you know, as we see God talking to them, like it's really sharp on what needs to be done and when it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that requires discipline. That requires not talking back like, oh, Lord, but the flood, I mean, you see how big
Right.
that is? And
Right.
I mean, do we really need to be this far away? Like, can we just go ahead and just run? Like, you know, I mean, you have to have that discipline.
You know what I'm thinking about too? It literally just hit me. So think about Joshua and the children of Israel right now, right? Moses is dead. Their people, their ancestors, their mom and dad, they were always complaining. They were always, you know, God, we hungry. We need this.
Yeah.
They didn't have to eat. God, like they didn't even have to have clothes. Like God allowed their clothes to grow with their bodies. And how you do that? Where they do that at, right? Sign me up for that miracle. Manna coming from heaven. You know, I don't know how manna tastes, but listen, if it comes from Jesus, I'm gonna take it, right? It's gonna be satisfying. I don't know, but you know, man, we got clout. I mean, but God was showing them all kinds of stuff, but they were complaining. Can you imagine? I'm saying this. Can you imagine how Joshua and them felt? I remember growing up in a home and saying, when I get older, I'm not gonna do it like them. I'm not gonna do it like how my dad did it. I wouldn't do it like that. But I'm not yet in a place of where I can make my own decisions yet. Joshua and the children of Israel, now in Joshua chapter, they're now grown up. They're now in the place that says, listen, we know what it looks like when you don't follow the instruction of God.
Yeah.
We know what it looks like when you don't walk out the obedience of God. You end up in a 40-year cycle. We ain't doing that.
Right.
We're gonna be obedient. We're gonna trust God. We're gonna do all of this stuff. So they didn't have a lot of pushback.
Right.
It wasn't a lot of pushback with Joshua and them to be in there. It was more so like, okay, be encouraged, be strong and be courageous. I'm gonna remind you again, because God said it, the Lord said it a few times, be strong, be courageous, you know, keep my word, because we can get afraid, but I'm not about to repeat
Right.
Yeah.
what I saw. If I saw you in the ditch and I got you in the ditch, why in the heck, I didn't cuss, but why in the heck would I repeat that?
Right.
Why would I go back and repeat that? Go ahead, Richard.
Can I add a different perspective?
Yep.
Is that sometimes, particularly like you talked about, people have died away, and sometimes what you're walking in is all that you know.
That's good.
That is true.
And so we teach people all the time, you know, we say that there's a vast difference between sometimes the culture and the Christ.
Yeah.
I'm doing culture, but that doesn't automatically mean that I'm doing Christ, okay?
Right.
And sometimes you are just doing culture because, hey, the complaining was kind of part of the culture at that point. It's kind of what we're doing. So sometimes it's, we
What we
teach
doing.
people what we're doing. We teach people, you know that. We teach people, oh, don't question yourself, you know? Go with your first thought. But sometimes you need to question yourself. You need to question whether or not what you're doing and what you're subscribing to is really like, is that God or is that just what you're used to? Does that make
I want to add to that because I have what I feel like is a great illustration. So I just met a lot of you guys recently. So you guys may not know this about me, but my wife and I we're foster parents. So you know our job is to bring these kids into our home that don't know anything. They may not know any better. We bring these kids into our home and we just love them for as long as they're here. And we have some kids in our house right now. We've got so many kids in my house right now. It's absurd. We got 6 kids right now. Like it's nuts.
Wow,
But,
Andrew.
the ones that we just brought into our home are they're 9 months, 3 years, 4 years, and 11 years. And so in a lot of ways, the 11-year-old has had to kind of step into a role that's not designed for her, and she's been the parent to these kids. And I don't know if you guys know this, and if you don't have kids yet or anything like that, I'm about to drop some knowledge on you guys.
Oh, hit
That's
us.
this. 11-year-olds make terrible parents. So it's just a fact of life. So like mine, I know minds are blowing. I can see them in the camera right there. Like you guys are sitting at home like, oh, I shouldn't let an 11-year-old raise a child. But this past week, I was working and I had the baby at home while we sort out daycare and stuff like that. And I'd asked my daughter, who's very responsible, my adopted daughter, who's very responsible. I'd asked her to if she could just feed the baby real quick, because I was busy doing something. And the other girl, the one who's actually the 9-month-old, her sister, she wanted to do something else because 11-year-olds wanted to do something else. That's what they that's what they want to do. And so they said they were feeding her, and then they came back out. And I was like, "Did y'all really feed her? Like, did y'all feed her?" "Oh yeah, we fed her. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I kind of doubted just a little bit. Like I kind of doubted just a little bit. Yeah. And so what I did was I went in there, and they put the baby down in her crib, and they put the bottle in there with this baby to like let her feed herself. Oh, gotcha. And that's just not what you can do for a 9-month-old, because they're like, yes, she can hold it up, but that's just not what she's supposed to do. But literally the 11-year-old, she thought that that's what she was supposed to do. She thought that was okay, because that's what she'd seen. That's what she'd seen up until this point. Wow. She'd seen that these things were okay, and so that's part of what they're in the process of doing. That's part of what Joshua's job here is breaking the cycle, is breaking this cycle of negativity, breaking this cycle of complaining, because like if something's not working, to continue to do it that way is the definition of insanity.
Insanity.
Like that's the way it's always been done, is never a good reason to keep doing something. That's never a good reason to keep doing something. If you've always done something that way, tell me why you've always done it that way. Right. And if you're not getting the results you want, it's time to change. It's time to listen to
revisit that.
Yes. What is God telling us to do?
And here's God presenting something that I don't even know is fathomable.
Exactly.
I don't even know is an option in life.
Exactly.
But you want me to go do it.
Exactly.
Right.
And another thing I want to hit on is I was that 11-year-old trying to help my younger brothers and sisters. Not sisters. I ain't had no sisters growing up. It was just brothers. I have an older, but from my mother's household, I had younger brothers where I was a person who was trying to feed my younger brother, put him in a chair and all that other kind of stuff. But for some reason, he was mad destructive. Like, whatever he touched, it broke. I mean, one finger, he could break anything. But then we would all get in trouble. Yeah. And that would frustrate me so much, because it's like, I didn't break it. I'm not the one who did that or said that. Like, why am I getting in trouble with the rest of y'all? And I can see that frustration that must have come from Joshua when he was like, we can take that land, like we can do it. And they got disobedient, and now he got to suffer for 40 years because y'all mess up. Right. And it's like, man, that can be so frustrating to take the same punishment as other people that you didn't necessarily do that.
Right. Yeah.
But I feel like God is definitely showing too, though, that he still sees us in those moments. You know, he's not like, oh, I didn't see you, you know, all y'all just get in trouble. But it's like God is actually seeing Joshua, and he's lifting him up. And he was saying that. He's like, I'm lifting you up to a new place now. And now he's like, these people are going to know your name. And your leadership is going to go forward.
Yeah.
And I felt that even in myself. It's like, you know, God hasn't forgotten me. He actually sees what I'm going through and what I'm doing. And he's actually using this time to prepare me for the things that are coming in the future. Because while they were in the wilderness, they weren't just sitting there. As they are like becoming soldiers. They're becoming leaders, generals. They're becoming craftsmen. I mean, they are becoming more than what they were.
And I was going to say, when you are in those wilderness moments, right? We've all had wilderness experiences where it's just like, man, I'm being disobedient, or the things that come from, or just process. You know what I mean? Anytime you're growing, you're a baby, you have to learn how to then crawl, and you got to learn how to walk, and then the terrible twos, and you want to touch everything. So you're going through this process, you know. But what's so interesting that you said, man, is that even along the way, if we stop and we pause for a moment, we'll discover that God has really been equipping us. Really has been equipping us so that when you do come up, when it is time, when you do make this decision, Josh has made the decision, okay, I'm going to be the leader. You know, okay, God is saying, Joshua, Moses is dead. It's now you. You're going to need to cross. God was being very specific. You're going to need to go cross this Jordan. Right. The only way you're going to get this promise, you're going to cross this Jordan. Now, of course, they probably thinking like, the Jordan, like, you know what I mean? But God has already equipped. They've already heard about what God can do, right? So in order to walk out the obedience of God, we have to have a sense, I don't want to use the word a sense, but we have to rely on God. We have to trust him. We have to trust him. And, you know, so there come our faith. Where is your faith in the midst of walking out the obedience of God?
And this how I know that I feel like I'm supposed to share this, because it still don't make sense in my head for real, but I'm just gonna say it simply because the conversation went this way. I want to bring up something that you shared from chapter 1 when God was telling Joshua to be strong and courageous.
I'm Josh. It had to happen at some point.
Right? And courageous. But he did. He said, be very strong and be courageous. Before he told him anything else, be strong and be courageous. And it's like, why is it, I mean, I get that sounds good, and it's very profound and everything, but in light of everything that we talked about for the past 5 minutes, I could not let that go. And it's like, and here's what, this is what's in my head. Now, if this don't make sense, sorry, but strength does not look the way it feels. And it does not feel in the way that it does. It doesn't feel like what it does. So when we talk about strength and we get in the thick of it, it's not about feeling strong. It's about doing what strength is purposed to do.
So basically you're saying, if we're going to trust God, we can't go off of what I feel. At this point, if I'm across this Jordan, if I'm gonna get to this promise and cross this thing, it can't be about what I feel, because if it's about what I feel, I can't swim. First of all, I can't swim. So what we doing, right? You know, what we doing, Lord? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it has to be something greater than what I feel.
Yes.
It has to be something that I know.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Yes. And then being courageous. So, like, when I'm hearing you guys talk about walking out the obedience, sometimes the strength isn't always emotional or physical. Sometimes the strength is simply a decision to say, I'm going to trust because that's what I said I was going to do.
Keeping your vow.
Keeping your vow.
Keeping
like
your
in the midst of doubt and in the midst of disappointment, or in the midst of your patience growing thin, or you starting to like question, all right, now I'm here. So, I mean, I know you said this is what you said, but you know, the strength to keep looking forward.
Regardless of the absence of fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So that's I wanted to just touch on that, because I couldn't let that go. Like, and then not being afraid, period. Not being afraid. So that means blocking out the what ifs. Or realizing that's okay, I understand what if, but I can't entertain that.
Right. And then so God's saying to Joshua, don't be afraid. Yeah. Don't be discouraged. He's saying that because I know you're about to be afraid. Like, but I'm telling you, like, don't be discouraged.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I am with you. If you meditate on my word day and night, if you keep my law on your lip, don't turn from it to the right, to the left, right? Why was he saying that in chapter 1? Because now here we are in chapter 3, chapter 4, God literally gave them specific instructions about how to cross this Jordan. If you don't follow these instructions to the T, this water gonna swallow you up.
Yep.
I want you to, first of all, I need you to allow me to go first.
Yeah.
Right.
Allow the presence of God to go first. Step one, you got to put God first in your life.
Yeah.
Like God has to be the ultimate authority in your life.
Yes.
Like he has to be the one that is in control. Because if he's in control, then that means he gonna take all the hits. You hear the scripture, the battle is not mine, but it's the Lord's, right? Well, let him fight the battle. Let him go first. Like literally, like, okay, Lord, you go first. But then he gave him other instructions. Okay, let the Ark of the Covenant go first, which represents the presence of God, right? Let the Ark go first. But as the Ark goes first, you better stay away from it. Don't you get too close to the Ark. Because in the Old Testament, folks was dropping dead, trying to help to catch the Ark. And what's the guy's name in the Old Testament? It's a short name. I always forget his name. But he tried to catch the Ark because it was about to fall. I was just trying to help out. No. Don't you? You better follow the instruction of God. Don't touch it. If you touch it, but if you let me go first, and then you keep all my commands, I promise you'll find success.
Yeah.
And literally what happened in the Jordan is, literally, Josh was like, okay. He sent the priests. Everybody got the word out, and literally, it's as if they just follow all the instructions. I mean, they followed it to a T, to the point to where all of a sudden this water opens up and it dries up. Following the instructions of God, I mean, it allows for something to happen. So if you want to see, man, something really move in your life, it's difficult. It is very difficult. It is not easy to follow or to walk out the obedience of God. Because sometimes you're going to get some people like, if you do it this way, this is easier. No. You follow out the instruction of God, but when you do, it's like the path opens up for you. It literally opens up for you like it did for the, So then what happened? So now they get over the Jordan. The water opens up, okay? And they walk through the Jordan River on their way to the promise. What did God then speak to them as they were going through the Jordan? What happened in chapter 4? Talking about memorials.
If you're talking about when God said, okay, each representative, get a representative from each of the 12 tribes and said, look, go out over here, go grab these stones.
Yep.
And the significance of that is saying, listen, I need you to go, you're going to go over to what should be wet ground, what should be swallowed up. But you're going to, and I'm willing to wager that as they went to go pick up those stones, that God probably could have put a finishing touch on those stones to make sure that they were bone dry. Imagine that, going into a place that is supposed to be like you're going into a place that's supposed to be like wet, dry, or just infested or something of that nature. But you're bringing out something that you're saying, I could not have brought this out of here if I was in a normal state. Bringing out all of those stones, and then they bring those out and they say, hey, we're looking at something. Because here's the thing: if you went out into the river and you got these stones, and they were all wet, it would not be the same thing as bringing out these stones that the Lord told you to bring, and they are in such pristine condition that only He could have set up for it.
Right. So they followed the instruction.
They did.
And He told them to do that so that they would make a memorial. What was the significance or the importance of the memorial? What is the significance of importance of having memorials in our personal lives? Why do we need memorials in our lives?
To go from faith to faith.
That's right.
Takes us from faith to faith,
Glory to glory.
glory to glory. Anything else?
But, it also makes me think about what you were saying in the beginning, legacy, right? Because we are not only setting up to remind ourselves what God has done, but we're setting up the generations that come after us, because we got to train up these next generations to realize, this is the way that you should go. This is what our God has done for us.
Yeah.
This right here is what you need to be taking note of. And once they're able to see that promise, that is it's stone, so this is solid.
Yeah.
Then they can see that it's real. And He did it for us, and He can do it for y'all too.
Right.
So,
And I think it comes full circle what we talked about earlier. You know, you hear these stories, you know, oh, they did walk uphill to school in the snow, both ways. They get it, yes. But you and I were talking earlier about just the difference we can see now that we're very connected to these, but sometimes you need to remember what grandmama said. Grandmama prayed you through some stuff, okay?
That's right.
And what mama said, and it is significant. And I think it's one of the themes of these chapters that there was no disrespect for Moses,
Right.
even though Joshua was taken over. There was no disrespect for Joshua. But you see, he says in verse 5, he says, and he said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord, your God, in the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up that stone on his shoulder according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites to serve as a sign among you. And in the future, when your children ask, what do these stones mean? You tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. And then he goes back in 21, he said to the Israelites, in the future, when your descendants ask their parents, what do these stones mean? Tell them Israel crossed Jordan on dry ground. Like, those stories and the things that we share with people,
That's good.
you know, you pouring into people some faith for some things that they might not even have gone through yet.
Yeah.
But I remember what grandmama said.
Right.
You know, I remember what granddaddy told me. I remember what mama and auntie and them, that stuff is going to come into play. You just need to keep on living.
Especially,
Just keep on living.
especially when they're looking at a water that's still a river, and they're saying, but this was dry ground, and they're looking like, whoa,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and that's because it's something I wanted to bring to light to. Is what I'm noticing is even all across the Bible, when God puts His glory on display, He puts it for everybody to see indefinitely.
Yeah.
It's like, so particularly there's two verses, verse 9 and then verse 24. Verse 9 where it said, then Joshua set up the 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests who bore the Ark of the Covenant stood, and they are there to this day. So it's just like whenever God does something, it's never going to be something that you can talk about one week and then like America just move on to the next. No, that is an imprint in your faith.
When
That's
God speaks,
yes,
this
it's
is
always,
this is going to be for now, but it's forever.
even think about like when he completed what he came on earth to do, and he had died for our sins, and when he arose, and he had said that his name will be above all names.
Right.
And then when he established his kingdom off the throne of David, that's forever. Like it's and then even on verse 24, where it says that all the peoples of the earth may know the hand of the Lord that is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. So whenever he puts it on display, it ain't going nowhere. It's there. So it's
Yeah. And that's great. I love that you connected it to the cross of all things, because you talked about the significance of memorials and what do the significance of memorials have in our everyday life. And let's just think about the cross, okay?
I'm about to go there.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that cross means everything. It's the crossroads of where heaven met earth, and where God Himself got on a cross and died for our sins. And you see that in every single church building that has virtually ever existed, and that's because it means something. It does, and I think so many times it becomes just this frivolous icon that we feel like we just wear around our neck, or we just put it up on a wall. But that was one of the most simple yet sophisticated instruments of torture that has ever existed.
Right.
It is the weapon that killed sin, and I can only imagine what it must look like. I've grown up in the church my entire life, and so I have to force myself into the perspective of like other people's shoes. And so I have to force myself from the perspective of what would a non-believer think? What would somebody who was completely raised outside of church like think when they walk into a church building for the first time and they hear the story of Jesus and they hear the story of the cross, and then they look up and they see a cross hanging? Like, what are you doing? That's what killed your Savior. Why is that hanging there? And it's like, well, that's good news.
Right.
It's like that's good news, because He willingly, yes, He was put there, but He willingly stepped there. He got on that cross. He allowed Himself to be sacrificed
Yeah.
because of his great love for us, despite our disobedience.
That's good.
He has this desire to long for us. And ultimately, memorials mean something. They mean something. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. And so, anyway, I took that a lot of different ways when I looked over some of these questions, and I just think that we have to take that into account. Is that what does the memorial symbolize?
Right.
What is the significance of it? Why is it there? The stones are there as a reminder of what God has done, just as the cross is a reminder that it is finished.
Yeah, that's good. We all say we want to be followers of Christ. I want to be a follower of Christ. I'm a follower after God. It's easy to say it with our lips, right? But when it's time to walk that thing out, when it's time to, it's time to work, it's time to suffer, it's time to go through, it's time to be persecuted. If you think about the cross and you think about what Jesus had to do to even get to the memorial, to get to the cross, to make it a memorial, right? There was some instructions. The garden. He was like, Jesus, Lord, do I have to do this? Does this cup, you know what I'm saying? Let this thing pass, Lord, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just like many of us, like there's a promise in our lives. There's something in our lives that God is promising, but then when you start to think about it, you like, Jesus, this is tough. This is hard.
And be strong and courageous. Yep. That's what he's talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right there. What you just said is like he was scared. Like in that moment, there was this fear of like, what am I about? Like the humanity of Jesus is on full. Like he's 100% God, 100% man, fully God, fully man. His humanity is on full display.
But he still had to go through
that
the pain and the
is still
suffering
there.
of it.
That strength is there.
I want to share something I heard today. Basically, just to sum it up, faith and comfort, they can't coexist. When it comes to being strong and courageous, and you're talking about walking out your faith, as you said, it's always going to come a challenge where you are uncomfortable. And you have to remember to be strong and courageous. And just like you said, like when he had to meet the promise, where he had to go from here to here, nothing about that. When you're asking me to be strong and courageous, and you're telling me all these things that I need to do, and that's not setting me up to sit back and be like, all right, cool. So you said you was gonna take care. No.
Right.
Be strong. That's what that is. You don't. There's nothing from here. Nothing. And, you always hear the phrase that anything that is worth having is not necessarily easy.
Yeah.
If it's worth it.
It's worth working.
You about to say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking about just kind of what you were saying at first, and it just made me think about when, I believe this is in chapter 3, and it was just like they were just getting ready. And it says, early in the morning, this is chapter 3, verse 1, early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to the Jordan, where they camped before crossover. And no, that's not it.
You up here cussing?
I was wondering how you was gonna bring that out.
I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced.
Shit, Tim.
I like it. I like it. That's how it is from now on.
I said shite him so I can not feel bad.
Okay.
But basically, just that moment of when he's like, consecrate yourselves. Here it is. Yep. As I said, I found it. So verse 5, Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. And just that space, and when you talk about just like God doing amazing things and like really huge things, and we get to that place where it's like you wake up and God is like, today is that day. And I don't know why, but when you talk about that fear, like there's this fear of like, man, today, like what I've been training for 40 years, today, it's gonna happen like everything we've been training for, everything we've been talking about, we've been toiling for, we've been sweating blood, all this, like it's about to happen today.
Everything rushes through your mind. Everything,
Man,
like what happened with Moses and them, like, but Lord, everything started coming to your mind when God called your number.
Yeah.
When God says, Richard, today's the day, you're looking like,
Like,
okay,
excuse me.
I'm just, because you was looking at me. But today is the day, Andrew. Today is the day, Tyler. Today is the day, Chris. Today is the day, Josh, Cameron, right? Like literally, today is your day.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, you know what? I want to see, man, we love reading the scripture, and all these things will be added unto me, right? We love to get to that part of the scripture, the seek ye first, the kingdom of God. But we got to first get through the seek ye first, the kingdom of God and his righteousness. What does that look like? What does that require of us in order to get the end? These things will be added. What does it require of me to see the promise of God in my life? What does it require? No, you're good. It requires sacrifice. Anything else? What else?
It's deliberate and intentional.
Intentional and deliberate. Anything else? What else? What does it require of an individual? What did it require of you?
Obedience.
Obedience. Obedience. It required my faith. It required trust in God.
It requires dying daily.
It requires dying daily.
It requires peace, man.
It requires peace. It requires
Diligence.
It requires a relationship with Christ.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Intentional
relationship.
Intentional relationship. In order, I can't do any of this if I don't have a relationship with God. Right? And so it's just like, well, Lord, I want to do this. I want to trust you, but it's either like you got to make a choice.
Yeah.
Josh and them had to make a choice. Josh, be strong and courageous. And what was Josh's choice? Somebody said it earlier. You respond immediately. Yeah. He responded immediately. Okay, y'all, this is what we got to do. Here's the instructions. This is what we got to do. What am I saying to you today? Man, I want to see the promises of God in my life. I want to know what that looks like. I want to know, man, what does a memorial look like? What does the victory of God look like? I remember asking myself this question years ago. Man, I want to know what it is to experience God. I want to know God for myself. And so that means it's going to require sacrifice. It's going to require me getting to a place that's like surrender. It requires surrender. So today we were literally talking about, man, crossing over. There's points in our lives where we have to trust God. There's turning points in our life. It may be the Jordan River. It may be a decision that you have to make today. It may be a relationship you have to let go. Yeah. It may be a place where I can almost guarantee you whatever it is, it's going to be you and Jesus. Yeah. It's never a situation to where it's like it's me and all of us. Nope. It requires that one-on-one. It requires that trust. And in order for us to see the promises of God, as you're going to see next week in the couch talk with the ladies, they literally were getting ready now they got to face another obstacle. Here comes Jericho. God didn't say all of that in chapter 1. He just said, but if you start to think about it, well, Lord, if I got to cross Jordan, what's right after Jordan? Jericho, sitting right there. It's got a whole lot of wall. Lord, if you get through this, if you allowed me to get you through this, I promise you I can get you through that. Yeah. Man, there's a song that says, our God is greater, our God is stronger, God, you are higher than any other, our God is healer, awesome in power, our God. Yeah. Our God. Let's say it again. Our God is greater. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer. Awesome in power, our God. Hey. Our God, and if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Yes, God. Our God is healer, awesome in power, our God. Our God. God, I thank you this morning. God, we thank you for who you are in our lives.
Thank you, Jesus.
Man, I thank you that you have literally allowed us to cross our own Jordans. It was tough. I mean, it's tough being a man. It's tough for all the issues that come with that. We deal with our pride. We deal with all kinds of pride. Could be the Jordan that you need to cross today. Letting go of that pride. But when you do, when you allow God to literally like go first and go, you know, you put him first in any situation, there's something that happens. There's an experience that happens, right? And then when God moves, then you can then take that experience, because that experience will get you through the next experience. They was getting ready to go to Jericho next. Well, Lord, how are we going to get through this? It's the same. Literally, if you read the Bible, it's the same processes. Follow the instruction of God, walk out the obedience of God, and then here comes the blessing of God. There were some instructions coming up in chapter 5 and 6. Man, but because they followed the instructions before, it was easier for them to follow the instruction the next time. Yeah. So when we gonna do it? Today is the day that we have to make a decision in our minds. Okay, God, today is the day that I'm going to walk out the obedience of God. What are you requiring of me? What do you need of me? What do you want from me? So I encourage you this morning to literally allow God to be first in your life. Walk out the obedience of God. Trust. Go back and watch this conversation. There's a lot of great information. But today I want to challenge you. If you want to see the victory of God, if you want to see the promises of God, first of all, there's no quitting. It's not an option.
Right.
It's not an option. We wouldn't be sitting here today if we quit, if we were just like, man, I'm done. Most of us are married up here, have families and kids. I mean, it's all kinds of, we got jobs and all kinds of stuff, life that just comes at us that be like, I can't do this. And then we got to walk out the obedience of God in other facets of our lives. We can't do it by ourselves. So you know what helps us? Man, putting God first, like they did with that ark, putting that thing first. God, you go first, and I'll follow after you. So listen, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I want you to join us for prayer tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., all right? Tomorrow, Monday morning, I know it's early, but I want you to join us for prayer. And, man, we'll walk with you Monday through Friday. Fridays, I'll be Facebook Live. But let's start tomorrow. Man, how do I start? How do I get to a place of surrender? How do I get to a place of saying, God, I'm going to trust you? It's prayer. I think, did we talk about that last week in our men's group? Our faith, right? Our faith is being like, or doubting. And I believe it's in Mark, I don't want to mess up the chapter. But basically, Jesus told them, listen, if you don't want to doubt, I need you to pray. You want to have more faith, you got to pray. And so that's why I need you to join us for prayer tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., all right? And I want to thank you so much for joining us. Listen, meet me this Thursday, 6:30 a.m. No, not 6:30 a.m., 6:30 p.m. I won't be there at 6:30 a.m. I'll be at prayer, right? But 6:30 p.m., I want you to meet me, 41 Tusculum Road, Antioch, Tennessee. Man, Crossland, man, we are just beginning, and I'm just so excited about what God is doing in our lives. I'm excited about what God is doing in you all's life. And I want to thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for the convo. And, man, I'm excited about what God is doing. Yeah, so, again, join us Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Join us for prayer tomorrow morning. And, man, we love you. Man, peace. And we will see you next week, all right? Thank you. See you later, guys. Yes.
That was good.
Great stuff, gentlemen.